Okay, so this is going to be our stringer. It's going to be just like you see up there, more or less, except that you have to calculate your own unit rise. And that's dependent upon how high you built your landing. So take whatever landing you made like that and just add 19 mil, because we're going to put a 19 mil sort of finished floor or subfloor on there. We won't consider any finished floor thicknesses or anything like that. We'll just put 19 mil material on top of that, and that'll be it. That'll be the actual total rise of your stair. So take that total rise, divide by 3, and you'll end up with your unit of rise. So the next step will be setting this thing to 25, because 25 is going to be our margin return right there. So the margin return is the distance between the line of flight and the underside of the stringer cap. So first line, this is like marking out something in black chalk. You are very confident when you mark with a felt. Then take your square, and I'll put unit of rise over here. That's scary. That's good.
Is that going to make you edit?
Yeah, I'll just nip that out of there. And then set your unit rise and unit run on this line. Not on the edge of the material, but on that line actually. So I can go 150, I'm going inside here, 150 and 255. There's 255 on that line. 150, 255, make sure, yeah, double check. Make sure it's right in the middle of that big old fat line right there. And then tighten that up a wee bit. And now, what will this line represent that I draw on the inside of the square? What's that going to represent? If you glance back at that thing, what do you suppose that represents? The which? No. This is like taking the side view, like taking a section through a stair and looking at it like that. So it's not exactly a notch stringer, not exactly, it's called a fully housed stringer. So it actually represents the end of the tread and the top of the tread. So if I just start, maybe 100 mils off the end here, this line would represent the end of that finished landing there. And if I take this thing out and it doesn't work, that's okay. I can go like this. This line here represents the very top of my finished landing. Top of finished floor, right there. So I can also take a tape and I can measure down the thickness of that material, which I said would be 19 mils. So I go like that. And that's my finished floor on the top. If I come back to this thing on the inside then, this line represents top of tread. Top of tread. I'm just making up these acronyms as I go along, as you can see. So this represents the end of the tread. This represents the top of the tread at the bottom. And then same thing over here, run this out. This represents the very last tread at the bottom. And I'm only going to go so far as the thickness of the tread there. So I'm holding 19 right here on this point, and I can draw a line. And I can do the same thing up here. Holding 19 right there and drawing a line. And now my nosing, I put all the specs up in the upper left there. My nosing is 25. So what I can do here is I'll just go up to this line and I'll count off 25. And it's roughly right there. So this will be what? Face of riser. And the riser is 13 thick. It's going to be ½ inch roughly. There's my riser. I can join these up now just by going like this and like that. That finishes off there. Do the same thing up here. 25 nosing right there. Goes down to about there. And then count back, about 13. That's right about there. I can finish off these here now at the bottom. And that runs into that because we're going to attach through like this and like that. Next step will be finishing off the bottom. So I'm just going here 25 and coming back here. And then I'll just mark that 13 right away. And this is the face of the riser, back of the riser. And what do I do for unit rise at the bottom? I can do the same thing. I can hold it here, and this line then becomes my finished floor at the bottom. And I know I'll have to flip that around. Sorry. There's my finished floor all the way through. There's my finished floor at the bottom. But the reality is, if we were to make a notch stringer now, it would be this cut line that we'd go to right here. But we're doing a fully housed stringer, and if you glance back there, can you see underneath the tread and behind the riser, there's actually a wedge? We're going to cut some wedges. And then literally, you just take the wedge and you hold it in place and mark the underside of the wedge. And you hold the wedge here and you mark the back side of the wedge. And then we have a layout. In other words, we'll cut to this line and we'll cut to the outside of the wedge. We'll also cut to this line as well. So our wedge will be on this side, and then we'll make some templates, and the templates will guide our router around to make this cut. But that's just the basic layout of the stair and the riser itself. Don't forget that according to the building code, we have to use at least 25 mil thick tread material. We're using 19 just because we have it kicking around and it's easy to get and easy to throw away and that sort of thing. One last thing. I talked about this being my margin. There's something at the bottom also called a margin return, and it's the distance to the newel post. Again, if you glance back there, you can see it. This is a very dirty square. Yucky. You can hardly see it. 25, right about there. So this line represents the face of the newel post. Remember, don't flip the square over end for end. Just rotate like this. So this will be the face of the newel post, but we're going to dado into the newel post a certain amount. That's the 19 mils. So I'll add another 19 onto that. Right about that. And then this mark will be my actual cut line for the stringer. So now, what are the actual cut lines for the stringer? Yep, it'll be this guy. It'll be this guy. This guy up here, like that. At the top, it's a little bit trickier. We have no wedge up here. No wedge at all. So for a single cut, it will be through and through on that line. This guy here, you can actually run it through. If it helps you visualize that, this guy can be run all the way through. So it's cut all the way through here. Cut all the way through like that. Cut, 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 cut.